Welcome to today's webinar on 10 recovery tips with BRMS for IBM. I'm Tom Huntington. I'll be acting as moderator for today. We have a great guest with us today, Miss Debbie Sagan, who is an expert on this technology and has been working on it for many, many years. This is a live event, so as we go through today's presentation, you'll have an opportunity to ask us questions that we'll have at the end. The event will be recorded, and those who attended will also get an email afterwards with the handouts from today's session. So very excited to be with you as we bring to you yet another webinar from Help Systems. I'm Tom Huntington. I'm our EVP of Technical Solutions. My claim to fame to these days also in the marketplace is I am an IBM Power Champion, recognized for the last 4 years. Very excited about 2019 again. And Debbie, a little bit about your background.
So I come from IBM after almost 38 years, and I obviously did backup recovery. So I was a technical owner of backup recovery. I spent 17 of those years in business recovery services where you actually help customers test recovery or actually have disasters. I retired from IBM and I just love backup recovery and really like the BRMS product so much that I was able to join Help Systems to continue to do what I like.
That's wonderful. And Debbie, you speak at Common. You do several topics generally on the BRMS product, right?
Yep, I do a lot of topics on BRMS and disaster recovery, Common, a lot of the users group. Yes.
Excellent. So we're very excited to have you with us today. Just to update you a little bit on Help Systems and our partnership with IBM. If you haven't heard about, 1.5 years ago, we started working with IBM a little more closely on BRMS, Power HA, and RDI. Help Systems does level 3 support, and then we work on net new development on these products. They are still IBM products. They're sold by the channel and out to the market that way, but very excited to have that relationship and helping you out as customers on the BRMS topic today. So as we get into today's webinar, we're going to have some polling questions for you too. We have our first polling question that I'm going to launch up here just shortly. And let's see what kind of experience you have with BRMS. You have no experience is one of the options. 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, 6 to 10, and 10 plus years. And I think while we wait for that to happen, I want to also make sure, Debbie, we did give you control of the mouse earlier, so you should be able to control things. So
okay, thank you.
Make sure that we have that in place.
Okay.
Let's see here. Looks like about, wow, already 80+% of you have already answered this polling question. So I think that that's probably good enough. Just again, a little infomercial for next week's webinar on IBM Marketplace study that I'll be hosting next Thursday via Help Systems. So just go to our webinar program and you'll see it out there. All right, let's close this and let's share this. So as we can see, we have the greater percent have been with the product for 35% for 10 years or more, 25% 6 to 10 years. We have 11% no experience, and then 14% between 1 and 5 years. So just a variety of people with us again here on the experience level with BRMS. All right, Debbie, we should be able to have you go ahead with the agenda for today. I'm not going to spend time rolling through this, so let's see if you can move forward now. If not, just let me know and I'll move ahead.
Yeah, it's not moving forward, or I can't.
Okay, let's hit our first topic. Here we go. Okay. Go ahead now. I had to close the polling question. Here you go.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
So Backup Recovery and Media Services, BRMS, it's IBM's strategic product actually to do backups. So for many, many years, what you had on the system for backups is you had save commands, you had the save menu options, but there was never anything to help you manage all that data that you were saving to your media and keep track of it. And that's what BRMS is all about. It's really giving you that tape management. And the other great function of BRMS is that it's going to help you at recovery time, so that when you need to recover your system, it will tell you what media you need, it'll guide you through the process, and it really gives you that warm comfort feel of putting that data back together again. There is function in BRMS to actually archive data off of the system. So that there's a lot of advantages to that. When that data isn't something that you need every day, you can archive it off the system, and then you can dynamically retrieve it. And of course, BRMS can work with just a single system, or, I've seen customers that have, up to 75 systems in their BRMS network. So in order to really be able to have a good recovery, you will really want to make sure that you have a good and complete backup strategy. And the first thing in having a good backup strategy is making sure that all of your critical data has been saved. Now, there are 2 reports in BRMS that I rely on to make sure that we have such a good strategy with our backup. And the first one is the Recovery Analysis Report. And in this recovery analysis report, you're going to have the steps to recover your system, but you're also going to have information about what libraries and objects have been saved, or more importantly, what has not been saved. So that's the first report. The second report is called the Save Strategy Exceptions Report. And when you look at this report, it's going to tell you any libraries that are not included in any of your BRMS control groups. There are 2 ways to get this report. The first way is to do a work-med IBRM with save type of star none, output star print. And the second method would be to do a start maintenance BRM specifying print recovery report with your save exceptions. The first report, the BRMS Recovery Analysis Report, is very good about pointing out things that didn't save. So when you're looking at this report, if you see attention in this report, you need to pay attention. If you don't have any attention, then that's good. But these attentions that you will see will say the following unsaved libraries are not included in the report. And also, if you're using independent ASPs, if those independent ASPs aren't varied on, it's going to let you know that they're not available at the time we ran the report. And you can see in this example I've given you, the CEO library, the CIO library, the test lib, and the production lib have not been saved ever. So you might want to take action on this. I would think the very important library would be your production library, and maybe you want the CIO and CEO library, but perhaps test library is something that you know that you don't need to recover, so that one would be okay. What's really important on this BRMS recovery report is another attention message, and it's actually going to give you a number of objects that were not saved. And so you want to pay close attention. And so in working with this particular customer, we saw that there were 456 objects that were not saved. And what that means is we attempted to save them, but we were not able to save them because there were object locks or the objects were damaged. So when I look further into my BRMS recovery analysis report, I look at the star link, which is the integrated file system save, and I can see exactly how many objects are saved. We have some 638,000, but what I want to work with is the 321 objects that were not saved. Now, in order to resolve these issues, you have a number of options. One is to resolve the object locks, or if they're damaged objects, what you really want to do is get the damaged object off the system and restore a good one. You could look at saving in a restricted state, because then we're not going to have locks on our objects. A very popular option today is making use of the Flash Copy Toolkit. Flash Copy Toolkit from IBM Lab Services lets you make an exact copy of your LPAR that you want to save, and then you can save everything in a good state, because now that LPAR that's not really being used is for your backup, and it can be saved in a restricted state. For some objects, we're able to end certain subsystems because we really don't need those up and running, or it's just ending certain applications. For example, I work with a customer that they were 24/7, but when they really dug into it, there were certain things that didn't need to run 24/7. It was just a minimum amount that needed to run in that environment. So you can really dig down into that and figure out what you can end. You can look at using Save While Active. That's another function. Important with Save While Active is that it's implemented correctly. So it usually takes some expertise to make sure you're using Save While Active correctly. And then one thing that I think almost all of you are probably running in today is when you have a link, there's all these IFS logs that are listed as not saved. So it's very annoying because you look at these logs and you say they're logs, they're like history logs and things that I don't need. So what you can do with that is there is something called the Q link omit link list. You can go in and add those IFS directories into this link list, and then they will automatically be omitted when you do your Starlink save. The next report, the second one that I talked about, is the Save Strategy Exception Report. And when you take a look at this report, you can see, you know, maybe it'll tell you one library was not being saved, and then it would be important library production lib, you would want to change that to include in your save strategy. One thing that is becoming very popular with customers today is making use of virtual tape libraries for your backup. It's increasing in popularity, and the other thing that I'm seeing is a lot of you are journaling, and you may be journaling because it's best practice to journal, or you may be journaling because you're using some form of logical replication. You're using Robot HA or one of the other logical replication products out there. And when you go to a virtual tape library, a recommendation to get faster saves is to do incremental versus doing your full saves to give you better performance. So you take this option and you think you're saving everything, but you may not be saving everything because the default to save those objects that are journaled is no. And because we've run into so many customers with this issue, and I've been finding out they don't know that they're not saving anything until they need to restore those objects that have been journaled, there are some recommendations to change this parameter. On the control group attributes, you can do your work control group BRM, take option 8, go into the journal objects parameter, and then you want to change that to yes, I do want to save those journaled objects. You could change this on the BRMS backup policy. So do a work policy BRM star backup, option 1, and then change the save journal objects when saving change objects parameter. Or if you're using the save live BRM command and you're doing a save type of cumulative, you would change the journaled objects parameter. Now, because of customers running into these issues and not knowing that they haven't saved data they thought they were saving, we have made some changes to BRMS. And there's the PTFs that are coming out for 7.2 and 7.3 that are listed here. The backup policy for a new BRMS install, this means you're not using BRMS today, will change to yes. So in that case, there's no change for existing users. You'll still have to make that change and make that choice. If you do start running a new save live BRM command, the default will be star yes to save those objects that are journaled when you're doing a cumulative save. Now, I've been through thousands and thousands of recoveries. If there's one small thing you can do when you're doing a recovery, and that is to change the message queue delivery before you start recovering your data. I know when you're doing your recovery, you want this to be the least painful as it can be, so you try to automate it. You have the tape library, you have the tapes loaded, and you have BRMS because it's going to restore everything, and then you think, this is great, we're going to go have some dinner, get something to eat, and if we neglect to change this message queue delivery option, then we come back to find that there's a message just sitting there waiting during the recovery and nothing has happened. And if you do not change the message queue delivery to star notify severity 99, you will get this nice message because IBM likes to remind you every hour on the hour that your license keys for the system will now expire in 70 days. Some of us are really taking advantage of having duplicate media. And with BRMS, you can duplicate your media, so you can keep a copy on site, and then you can send a copy off site. And maybe you're sending the copy from your off site that you duplicated to your recovery center to either test or actually do a recovery. But what you have to do is follow certain procedures in this case. And for the BRMS duplicate media, when you run the dupe-med BRM command, you must specify save media information, either star lib or star object. And that's going to give you the history about the duplicated media. And then when you actually run the recovery using the start recovery BRM command, specify yes to use the duplicated media. It's a really nice option. Just make sure you are using the option and actually saving that information so that the recovery can happen with the duplicated media. So there are many, many different types of media libraries out there. And I've done testing with everything from an old drive called a 3590, which actually you could use as a media library, to the new media libraries. And I like to make sure that I have everything automated and I don't have to manually mount tapes. So one of the tricks that I've come up with, and it works for all the media libraries, where you have a small LTO media library or you're using large TS4500 media library. First, you're going to have to load your SafeSys media, and that's going to be your manual process of loading the SafeSys media so that you can get LIC and OS loaded. From there on, what you can do is unload the SafeSys media and then load all those volumes you're going to use for the recovery, including the SafeSys, back into the media library. Then you turn on the media library, set it for library operations. It's going to be in library mode now. And then the next step when you're doing the system recovery is to do a work MLB status and verify that your media library is varied on. And underneath the media library device name, you're going to have a tape resource. You need to allocate your tape resource or resources using option 4 to the media library. And now all of this should run automated and unattended for you.
That's a really cool feature. I mean, I think not enough of us are doing enough with automation. Speaking of that, we want to kind of talk to you or ask you in a polling question, where do you struggle with backup and recovery for IBM I? I'm going to launch up that polling question right now. You should see that in front of you. You have no documented recovery plan, no regular testing, no tape management system in place, no notification when backups fail. Maybe you've never had any training on BRMS. And I think this one allows you to select multiple options. Not sure 100% on that. Yeah, sure looks that way. Not uncommon that people don't have documented recovery plans. Not uncommon that people aren't doing regular testing. I think there's that sense of IBM I is a great system, and we've had success in the past whenever we had to recover, so why test, right? No tape management, no notification when backups fail. Debbie pointed out earlier, looking at reports and those kinds of things to see what was failed or what was not backed up, and those things are there available for you. But how many of us are looking at those on a regular basis? I really like that tip. And then the last one is no training on BRMS itself. All right, probably enough time on that polling question. I'm going to close the results. I want to thank you for taking that. We have one more polling question here at the end. Let me share the results. It looks like 53% of you do not do regular testing of your backup and recovery. Welcome to today's webinar. 45% no training on BRMS. That's not a surprise either there. I think that often we just get software and kind of expect it to know it. And then documentation for recovery plan is lacking, and then no notification when backups fail. All right, well, thank you. Debbie, back over to you on our next topic, and I'm going to keep moving the mouse ahead for you too, Debbie.
Okay, great. Sounds good, Tom. So the next thing in doing our BRMS is recovering the BRMS product history. And the first thing we want to do is get the BRMS product on the systems to do our recovery. So this is after we restore look and OS. And there are going to be a couple commands that you're going to run depending on if you've done full backups or cumulative backups. And you're going to be doing a restore live and you're going to be doing a restore object. And you'll see here that I've highlighted sequence number. So keep in mind that I've highlighted sequence number because that's very important. In the BRMS report, it's going to tell us the sequence number that we need to use. And what I want you to think about when you're doing the recovery is you got a restore lib, you have a restore object, you know, the BRMS product information, and there's a list of libraries. And you want to look at a parameter for your end option. Now, do I want to restore something and completely rewind the tape, or are they listed sequentially on the tape? Can I leave the tape so I'm not spending time to rewind the tape? And if it's on the same tape, of course, I don't want to unload the tape. So be very careful of how you specify end option. Typically, you're probably going to be start leave, but make sure that you do specify the sequence number so that it gets the right data that you're looking for on the tape. And you will see on the BRMS recovery report, here I've got the BRMS libraries that I need to restore. I have QUser BRM, QBRM, QMSE, and then you'll see over here I have the sequence number, and that's where you're going to pick that out when you're typing in these commands. After we get the product on, we want to get the BRMS related media information, or I like just to call it the history. So the history is everything about the saves that I have to restore. It's usually at the end of the tape. So this is another restore command called restore object. And I want to make sure I'm just restoring the object out of this QUser BRM, specifying the sequence number so I get the latest history. Now this is put in here because I had the problem where I didn't specify the sequence number and it restored the newer version of BRMS originally and not the latest history, and then when I went to do my recovery I didn't have the right information. So that's why I throw that tip in here for you. Now when you're going through the recovery, there's going to be some restore command defaults that we tell you to change. So you start your BRMS recovery, you press the F9, and here's where you're going to tell it the tape device, or if you're using a media library, you'll put in the media library name. You're going to want to make sure that save lib is on the restore to library. There was a scenario once, and I got a call and they said save lib deb was set by the customer to a library called test. And they asked what they should do, because what that meant is all of the libraries that they were restoring were all going into one library called test. It meant they would have to start over. The next thing you want to make sure is the save ASP is the save ASP on auxiliary storage pool. You want to make sure database member option is star all so that everything restores. And then for allow object differences, that should be either star all or star compatible. And the reason you do this on a system recovery, this is what relinks your authorization list to the objects. So if you ever had a problem with the recovery and you didn't have authorization list linked to the objects, it means you didn't specify this parameter. And then we still have a parameter called system resource management for restoring your configs, and you should set that to star none because you're going to a different system. Now, once you set these recovery defaults on your system recovery, they're going to remain in effect until you sign off of the system. Now, if for some reason your BRMS recovery ends in error, or you decide to cancel it because you want to take a look at some other things and just make sure things are going, and you've got part of the system restored, but you need to finish it out, you can do a start recovery BRM start resume to pick up where you left off. Now, that is resume, that's not resume. Resume is what you're going to write when this doesn't work. So many of us are able to do just a simple BRMS recovery. I want to show you how that works. It's going to work by doing your start recovery BRM, star system, and then it's going to bring a list of everything we need to recover to put the system back together. So you're going to see your security data, your config, your libraries, and the easy way to do this, if we're just using one tape drive, is to go ahead and do an F16, and you'll see all the ones are going to be pressed by selected to do this recovery. Parallel restores. This is going to be different for you. You can do parallels with IBM and all user, having physical or virtual tape resources. And how you do that is you're going to select VolStat and you're going to specify the volume ID. You're going to submit those to batch. There's other things that you have to do. Those other things will be listed in the BRMS recovery analysis report. It's a little bit different when we get to the Starlink parallel restore. And this is because the data is actually spread across multiple tape resources here. So what you have to remember when you get to the Starlink, you actually have to move all that media to the storage location of the media library name first. Then you'll change your recovery defaults. And the device you want to use in this case is Star Media Class. And here's where you tell it the number of tape resources or virtual tape resources you're using. Probably 4 would be a common number that you might be using. The specific details for this will be found in the BRMS recovery report. Now, I just like to throw in something I saw years and years ago as far as backup recovery, and those are the golden rules. That which has not been backed up cannot be recovered. That which has not been backed up off-site will not survive a disaster. Any backup that has not been tested a recovery is not a backup, and you can back it up or give it up. So testing your recovery and having a place to recover is key to a backup recovery strategy. So we have with Help Systems an offering called Disaster Recovery on Demand. And this is having me work with you to assess your backup recovery procedures. It's looking at your daily, your weekly, your monthly, making sure we're saving as quickly as we can, making sure we're saving everything we can, and then it's having a place to go. It's a petition on a system in a location that you can test your recovery and you can go for DR. And included in the offering is a test once a year. And the nice thing about this test is once you test, you have 30 days on that petition to do whatever you like. Maybe you want to go ahead and test an upgrade. And it's not just tape-based recovery. If you want to do a cloud-based backup and recovery, cloud backup and recovery is available to you. But what key to this is actually having a place where you can test and where you can recover and a price you can afford, and getting the expert assistance that you can have. And you know, you may not be available in a disaster and you may need somebody to do that BRMS recovery for you.
Excellent job, Debbie, going through all the different tips on BRMS and recovery to make your life successful. Just want to remind customers of some things that we have going on in Help Systems that kind of fit around this strategy. Business continuity solutions for IBM I. Of course, we also today have Robot HA, which is software replication or logical replication. And then we have Power HA, which is hardware replication via the independent auxiliary storage pool technology. We certainly can help you out with those two topics of discussion. And then Debbie just went through her business continuity consultancy services that she does. She certainly does training on BRMS. She's an expert on BRMS. Business continuity architecture reviews, disaster recovery testing. She does help customers through role swap testing, which is another difficult area for people. And then something that we have newer at Help Systems is with Robot HA, we do also have a DR as a service or HA as a service, and Debbie can certainly help talk you through some of those discussions around that. So excellent job of helping people out and better understanding BRMS and some of the tips that have bought or gotten people in trouble in the past. So another thing that we have coming soon, we're hoping to have this out in the month of February from Help Systems, is integration of BRMS's database into our Insight analytics. Insight technology is something that we've been working on for the last 3-4 years at Help Systems to make deployment of our software easier. But to us, it made sense. We have this great dashboard technology in here. Could we help simplify the access to BRMS information and provide you with a consolidated dashboard around, number of volumes that are expiring and various other things about are your backups successful across all of your instances and partitions, and so providing this consolidated pre-built set of queries around BRMS. So that's something, look for more to come on Insight as we move into the Help Systems solution here in February. So let me do this. I'm going to launch up our last polling question here. How can we follow up with you? We're always looking for ways that we can help you as customers. You should see that polling question up. Let's connect for a technology update conversation. This is purely Help Systems walking you through what's new at Help Systems, making sure that you understand what's going on at our company. We do see ourselves as a strategic supplier for many of you on IBMI. A 1 hour conversation once a year with us on what's new and what's happening is not a bad idea. It's a great way to feed in even enhancement ideas into products like BRMS. I'd like more information about Debbie's BRMS services. Certainly, we'd love to help you out there. Debbie's available to help you as we go through the hard to believe 2019 season. I need help with integrating BRMS with an HA project I'm working on. I'm interested in DR on demand for hot site recovery because I don't have a good solution today for testing. As we saw, many of you don't test your solution. I'd like more information about BRMS View and Insight. Certainly select that as an option. And let's see, we're going to leave this polling question open. Debbie, we have a few questions that have come in, and before we go any further, let's maybe take a few of those questions. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
One of the comments we had is that we're not having any problems with BRMS and having no issues, so should have had that as an option on one of our polling questions. Great point, Art. Appreciate that. We could certainly expect that. Can BRMS do encryption? If so, what needs to be done on restore?
So BRMS does support encryption. What you want to keep in mind is software encryption. So there is a performance overhead with that, and you can only encrypt your user data. There is a process to get the keys back on there. Some of the keys are stored in user BRM, but you could use that as, say, restore master key. You might want to be looking at hardware encryption with your tape library. So that's a conversation. If you're interested, I can take you through and we can work through what the best option would be. But some customers that do have a large window do go ahead with the software encryption with BRMS, yes.
Okay, excellent. Debbie, you went through all these tips on backup and recovery of media services from Help Systems BRM or from IBM and Help Systems. What are the what is something that is the most common mistake that people make, or is there no such thing as a common mistake when it comes to backup and recovery?
Well, I like to think that the common mistake is that they don't test. And then if that's very, very common. They don't test. They're really not monitoring their backups. They think everything is good, and then something happens and they lose data. So that would be the biggest common mistake, I would say.
Yeah. So if somebody needs training on BRMS or has never had training on BRMS, what can you do to help them?
So absolutely, I just love to, it's an on-site thing that I do with you, and I like to give you the kind of training that's going to apply to your environment, because everybody's environment is different, and there's so much function in BRMS. Not everybody needs to know everything, but there are certain things that may apply to your environment to make the backups go faster, to make the recoveries go quicker. So it's all geared to your environment and how we can make it better.
Okay. Paul's pointing to a problem that he had in BRMS. Probably, I think we best take that offline and then we can feed that through the channel. So the normal support for BRMS, you still do level 1 and level 2 through IBM. If it gets into a really sticky situation, then you'll have Help Systems in the background. Here's a comment from Art. We use robot reports to send our BRMS recovery reports via email daily. Well, thank you, Art. That's certainly something that you can do. Or you can use any kind of tool that would convert spool files to PDF and then be able to send those out that way. So Debbie, great job today. I'm going to close our last polling question here that we've had out for some while, and then move into our last slide here while we leave the Q&A piece up in case any other questions come out. Just so you know, the Help Systems world has changed quite a bit. We do a lot on cybersecurity these days, certainly security scans for Linux, Unix, Windows, and IBMI. Automation is the name of the game. We'd love to help you out with any kind of automation, document management, BI on IBMI. We certainly do that. So, and then we just recently, over the last 6 months, added Performance Navigator for I. So if you're having any kind of issues or thought processes while you're looking at Power 9 or Power 8 upgrades, we can help you better understand your environment and where you're going from a performance standpoint, or we do services around helping customers troubleshoot performance problems on IBM I. So Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome again to today's webinar that we had, and I want to thank you for your attention. And Debbie, wonderful job as always. The customers just love hearing from you on backup and recovery. Any final comments?
No, I just want to make sure that everybody does remember to test their backup. We have a good
I
recovery.
thought you were going to say test, test,
Test,
test
test.
again. Right.
Yeah, you
All
know
right.
my philosophy. Test, test, and test. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Have a wonderful day.